Welcome to Caleb Can't Read. I'm Jordan Rabel.
I'm Caleb Terrence.
You know, I was thinking, you know what's really going to get shit moving along, like as far as news for our podcast goes, is
What do you mean? All right, yeah.
we should controversy. No news is bad news, that kind of thing.
We're not loosening the N-bomb rules.
No, that's not what I had in mind.
No. The no news is bad news thing is absolute fucking horseshit.
No, that isn't. Oh, no, wait, I guess that's another way of saying the correct thing. You're correct, yeah.
The no such thing as bad publicity thing, bullshit. Here we go. Caleb Terrence and Jordan Rabel connected in string of orphanage burnings. That's bad publicity.
That's fucking metal.
Okay? Like, that's not...
That's cool as shit.
You can't... It's not a... That's a bullshit statement. Like...
Yeah, fuck those orphans, man. That sounds great.
Wait, did you have some kind of idea? Did you have something specifically offensive you were going to say to me?
No.
At the world, or more likely like 50 people? I don't know.
No.
Okay. Another smooth segue into the subject matter, Jordan. Great fucking job. Thank you for doing your job.
Well, let's get started then, shall we?
I'm grumpy.
Now, I know you hate women, but...
What the fuck?
But you're just going to have to bear along for today's episode, okay?
Fuck you, man.
Regina Lucille Klein was born to her father, Peter Klein, the mayor of Milledgeville, Georgia, the former capital of the state, and her housewife mother, Margaret Klein, on January 27th, 1896. They were a very prominent family in the Georgia scene, mostly through buying up property that was selling on the cheap after the Civil War. While Regina seemed overshadowed by her brothers and father who were allowed to be in politics, Regina was attending all the best schools money could offer. In the summer of 1922, at her brother Herbert's wedding, 28-year-old Regina met her new sister-in-law's brother, a real estate agent named Edward O'Connor Jr. They had a very brief courtship before marrying on October 14th that very same year, just a few months after meeting, and moving from Milledgeville to Savannah, Georgia. On March 25th, 1925, when Edward was 28 and Regina was 29, they had their first and only child, and the subject of today's episode, Mary Flannery O'Connor. Now, living in Savannah, Mary remembers being able to see the spires of the nearby Cathedral of St. John the Baptist from out their two-story window, and hear its bells ring off during the day, the sun in the trees. Her mom, however, didn't think of the town of Savannah quite as romantically. What she recalled were the amount of mosquitoes, and having to regularly put Mary in what was called a kiddie coop, which was essentially just a kennel with a screen on it, to try and get her child away from all the fucking insects. Does that ring any bells for you, actually?
That's the entire South, though.
Well, sure.
I've actually spent like a good amount of time in Savannah, and it is gorgeous and awesome, but like there's nowhere you're going to go in the South where you're not going to be eaten alive
the most South I've ever been, really, is, over on that side of things, is like Chicago. So I have no idea.
That's in the perks of being up here.
Well, how big are the bugs, anyway?
They suck, and they hurt a lot, and you have, like, red ants and shit. And then you have snakes in the water
have
that fuck
the fucking fire. Do you have the firebugs?
Yeah, you get fire ants in the
ants?
South, man.
Shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
They will absolutely send your ass into anaphylactic shock real quick. Yeah.
Impressive and scary.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone talks about Australia like, oh, hey, right air.
Motherfucker!
But hey, maybe it won't be as bad. We'll see.
I'm so sorry, listeners, if that didn't cut out and I just screamed in your ear.
Maybe it's nothing.
Should we start over?
Nah.
Nah?
It looks like it's still going. And the last time that we checked on this thing, it was still recording through the times that said right error. So maybe it's okay. I'm just going to stitch it together anyway.
Yeah.
So
this is the fucking Ford Taurus of recording devices, dude. It just doesn't work. I don't know why it isn't working. No one you bring it to is going to tell you why it's not fucking working. You can't Google why it's not fucking working. It just doesn't fucking work.
You had a Ford Taurus, right?
Yeah,
that was the one that
I'm making the metaphor.
That was I remember just getting the fucking like the call from work, just listening to Eric go like, "You mean your car won't start?" No, you mean the car won't start. What do you mean it won't stop?
That was so fucking bad, dude.
That was horrible.
Okay,
Every time you
I deserve fucking appreciation for going on a date with the Ford Taurus that I had to pop the hood and disconnect the battery to turn off
Yeah,
with.
you would use the fucking needle nose pliers and shit to like dig out parts. Did you went on a date like that?
Yes, and then I got laid.
Well, hey, at least you know she wasn't after your money.
Yeah, there you go. But yes,
impressive.
Even with the handicap, thank you. The additional handicap.
Yeah, I'm trying to think right now, like, what handicap are you referencing right now? Your financial one? Your car's handicap? Yours? So, when Mary was 6, she trained a chicken to walk backwards. Believe it or not, this was such a big deal. This was such a big deal locally.
This is a big deal. How dare you?
She was filmed by Pathé News. These are the guys that would film news segments that get shown before the movie would start in a theater back in the olden days. So this footage with Mary got shown all over the nation. You can actually see the video up on YouTube too. It's like a minute long, but she's only in it for like a second before the narrator is like, with modern cameras, we can do it too. And they just reverse footage of farm animals walking like it's no big deal. So all they did was dunk on a little Irish girl who actually trained a chicken to walk backwards and broadcast on a national level that she could go fuck herself. I guess we've always hated Irish kids. Anyways,
kids in general.
Here's the video itself.
Do you reverse?
Here's an odd fowl that walks backward to go forward so she can look behind to see where she went.
Here's Mary O'Connor of Savannah, Georgia, holding the only chicken in the world that actually walks backward. When she advances, she retreats. To go forward, she goes back. When she looks ahead, she's going astern. And when she arrives, she's really leading. But when our trick cameraman started out, he found he could make them all do it. Look at this duck.
see what I mean? So they just like they're just like fuck you, kid. It's like, okay, she's 6 years old though.
Kid.
It kind of sucks. It's like, okay, dude, like, I don't know. That's as great as like the local news will ever give her.
You trained a bird. Good job.
That is a good job. She's 6.
I can't train like anything. So.
No, you have a very bad dog.
Well,
no, I'm kidding.
My girlfriend can train very well.
She has trained him very well, and he is a very good boy.
He's a good boy.
My dog's better.
Your dog fucking sucks,
my dog's
dude.
the worst demon hell on earth.
You love that dog, and I love her. Dog, but that is
I love her to death, but she is just the worst fucking
That is like a 2, and if we go any lower on the bad dog scale, we're getting into violence.
Yeah. Me and Nicole talk about it all the time where we're like, if Buster was a person, what do you think she is? And it's like, oh, she's a horse girl, for sure. That's like kind of shitty, but has horse posters up in her room. Anyway,
you don't even want to know what kind of child I think that dog would be. That's dark. Like, that's like a foster kid that's acting up too much and is just jumping from home to home. Okay?
Anyway,
it's a problem.
This is what Mary had to say about being filmed then in her later life. Quote, when I was 6, I had a chicken that walked backward and was in Pathé News. I was in it too with the chicken. I was just there to assist the chicken, but it was the high point of my life. Everything since then has been an anticlimax.
That sucks.
I mean, and honestly, that's more than you've ever done, you or I. So, I mean, fuck it. I get it.
I had a pretty good early childhood.
Yeah, sure. But did you ever get a chicken to walk backwards?
Everybody's early childhood is good because you don't have the perspective to let you know that what you're doing sucks.
I love that you went for a different aspect rather than just dodging the question altogether.
Yeah, what did you want me to say there?
You've never trained a chicken to walk backwards.
No, I have not.
Your life sucked.
Okay, excuse me.
You're a shit kid.
My bad, I missed the question. I can't read. Please forgive me.
In 1937, when Mary was only 12 years old, her father was diagnosed with lupus. Back then, an uncurable disease. In a desperate move to assure himself that his wife and daughter would be okay after his passing, Ed moved his family 168 miles west back to Milledgeville, their former home, to a place called Andalusia Farm. The farm had been a former plantation built about 100 years prior to the O'Connors moving there, and rested on 544 acres of land.
Oh, they tend that themselves?
No.
Okay, move along.
It was, I believe, one of the several locations bought up by the Klein family back in the day, and since then had been owned by Regina's uncle. During this time, however, her uncle had moved out, and Andalusia Farm had been inherited by Regina's cousin before he himself retired in 1947 and left it all to Regina and her brother Louis. However, Ed himself was barely settled into Milledgeville before passing away just a year after the move on February 1st, 1941, at the age of just 45. Mary had moved on as best she could, later attending Peabody High School, doing cartoons for the school paper, which were pretty good, by the way. They looked like old Cubist drawings. Now, while she was focused on the cartoons, what this experience really gave her was her first introduction to journalism, a focus that she carried on after graduating from high school in 1942. She immediately attended the Georgia State College for Women, completing a 3-year program in June of 1945 with a bachelor's in sociology and English literature.
This is too wholesome. You're making me nervous. What you got?
Don't worry about it. It's fine. She also dropped the Mary part of her name, wanting to distance herself from what she felt was, quote, an Irish washwoman name, and went by her middle name instead. And it's how I'll be referencing her from now on, as she is, of course, known most famously as Flannery O'Connor. I also have nowhere else to put this, but I just have to mention...
No, that name's too Irish. I'm going to be Flannery O'Connor.
Exactly, right? Like, you literally can't look at the word Flannery without instantly imitating it and going, Flannery! Like, like Mary's fine. But
I don't know much about their culture, though, so like maybe her old name
Irish culture?
Yeah, maybe her old name was indeed like a dishwashing title.
I don't know. Well, they have Marys everywhere around the world. You think Christianity went as far as the British Isles? Like, Mary is everywhere. I don't know. Flannery is very Irish.
Yeah.
Would you name your son Paddy? Paddy O'Garrett. Oh, okay.
The Garretts.
The Garretts. Prison Garrett coming back again. I also have nowhere else to put this, but I just have to mention that Flannery O'Connor wore these cat-eye glasses that eventually became part of her signature look. Couldn't find when she got them or anything, but she's known for them, and she needed to wear glasses, so I'm assuming she wore them then. Anyway, although she had just attained her bachelor's in college, she wasn't done there. She went to the University of Iowa the next year and became part of a group called the Iowa Writers Workshop. And this group is less fuck around and more find out when it comes to their process. Mm-hmm. If you're part of the Iowa Writers Workshop, dumb name as it may be, you're there to focus 100% on getting the best writing out of your head and onto paper. Between its alumni and the actual people who teach the class, the workshop has 29 Pulitzer Prize winners under its belt. And unfortunately, Flannery O'Connor's not one of them. Actually, Flannery...
Props to not putting up with that kind of atmosphere. Like, fuck off. Don't put me through all this shit. Like it's not necessary.
God, I mean, but you know it.
If you're not killing yourself for your art, are you even an artist?
Right, yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
I'm a surrealist. Oh, well, then you can just do whatever the fuck you want. Leave. Actually, Flannery was there to work on her journalism degree. At least at first. Her shift into the writing career she's now known for began with another member of the workshop. A man named Andrew Little was someone who'd published a few books already, but he himself was looking to get into journalism as well. In fact, in about 15 years, Andrew Little would be the editor of a literary magazine called the Sewanee Review. Yeah, Sewanee. All right.
Good job, Jordan.
Yeah. Well, I put it phonetically in bold next to it, so I wouldn't fuck it up.
I feel like you had a harder time looking at it like that, and that backfired on you.
It really did. It's supposed to be a lot more smooth. But the Sewanee Review would publish some of Flannery O'Connor's later work. But although she was just writing some articles and essays at the time, like What Happened to Ralph Ellison, Andrew convinced Flannery to try her hand at fiction instead, so she gave it a shot. Her first published story is called The Geranium. It's the story of an aging Southern man named Old Dudley, who, in a moment of weakness, agreed to move in with his daughter, her husband, and their 16-year-old in New York City. Now, Old Dudley is very much an old soul. And when I say old soul, I mean racist. He just cannot believe that his daughter and her family live literally next door to a black man. He is extremely unbelieving of the fact that this man has not hired help to one of the families there.
Has there ever been any time when you've heard someone be called an old soul where it wouldn't also be paired along in your head with racist?
It's actually mostly what it means is just a fuddy-duddy. You know?
Okay,
like,
I don't know.
Old soul, non-smoker.
He's an old soul. Oh, okay, all right.
He's very down to earth. Oh, you mean a regular guy and you expect him to be a douche? Yeah, that's it.
Just speaks his mind. Oh, that's very inconsiderate.
He's an old soul. Why don't you want to say the thing that you want to say? I know it's in there. You're just rolling on that R right now of just racist. And Old Dudley has a hard time adjusting to the big city in general. He's never seen a skyscraper before. He's terrified of the L train.
How fucking jarring could that shit be?
If you're in the old South shit, I don't know. I honestly, I don't fucking know. I was born with the internet around, you know? Like, actually, I wasn't.
No,
but
you fucking weren't. Neither was I.
Oh, man.
Yeah, you're that fucking old, bud.
Oh, no. You know, when I was reaching down to grab my 40 off of the bottom shelf of the 7-Eleven, I just stood up regular, I threw out both my fucking knees at once. I was like, oh, no.
Jordan, I want you to know that no matter what you drink, someone like you will never, ever have street cred. Okay? It's not going to happen.
And, above everything else, Old Dudley doesn't get that sometimes roads just don't go nowhere. They don't lead to anything. I guess in the South, they just, at least back then, if there's a road, it's going somewhere, to somebody's home, something. Sometimes there's just dead ends of nothing. There's not construction sites or anything, and he's just fucking like, why have a road? So Old Dudley...
Why have a road if there isn't a dead end at the end of it? God damn it.
You know who I bet is in charge of all this? What an old soul.
I told you we needed to install a little beep in this thing.
What an old soul Old Dudley is.
We install the beep in, and then you just say it, and I'm like, off time. It's just...
So
the word being, you know, incompetent people, of course. Actually, two.
Incompetence.
Ooh, I am digging deeper. Move along.
So old Dudley finds comfort sitting inside instead, where it's white and safe and clean. From his armchair pointed out the window, he can see a potted geranium across the courtyard in a windowsill. It reminds him of home. Quote, the geranium they would put in the window reminded him of the Grisby boy at home who had polio and had to be wheeled out every morning and left in the sun to blink.
That is quite a stretch.
Hey, whatever you can get. Old Dudley also remembers a black guy back home that used to take him hunting and fishing and hung out with him because he knew his place and probably because he also knew what would happen if he said no. So Old Dudley, wanting a taste of what he had back home, asks the black guy next door to take him hunting. And the guy actually agrees. But as Old Dudley soon learns, the terrain and game up north is far different than what they had down south. And he has himself a terrible time. No game, no fun. He falls in a hole and gets all dirty. And when the black neighbor pulls him out of the hole, he actually pats Old Dudley on the back and calls him old man. Like they're some sort of equals. Or friends. The disrespect! Well, luckily, Old Dudley holds his fucking tongue. What he needs is a little armchair meditation to calm down. So he gets home, sits in his armchair, looks out the window, but the geranium is gone.
I need to sit through and think about this very complicated situation.
First time I ever heard one speak.
This is too much.
He sees someone in the window that the flower belongs to and calls out to them across the way. He asks what happened to the flower. The guy tells Dudley it fell off the windowsill. Sure enough, Old Dudley looks down at the ground from high up in his apartment and sees the shattered remains of the pot the geranium came in. and the flour left on the ground. The neighbor tells him he sees him sometimes looking through his window. He don't like people looking through his window. Quote, "I seen you before," the old man said. "I seen you sitting in that old chair every day staring out the window looking in my apartment. What I do in my apartment is my business, see? I don't like people looking at what I do. I only tell people once," the man said and left the window.
I'm picturing right now the reason the dude is so mad about this. I mean, okay, that's very creepy. Don't look in my fucking apartment.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But at the same time, like, homie, why don't you have curtains? So now I'm picturing just a geranium and then a completely blank apartment and just beer bottles and a mattress on the floor.
I don't like my fucking curtains. I like looking into your apartment as I'm jerking off.
Like,
what I jerk off to is my business.
just some weird, shameful, don't tell anyone I live like this shit. Like,
yeah. And
a beautiful geranium.
That's actually the end of the story itself.
Wait, beaten off?
Huh?
Beaten off alone in an apartment?
No. Just him telling off the old man and leaving. And it's not a super exciting tale. In fact, most of O'Connor's work isn't. That's because she was a big proponent of a genre called Southern Gothic. Now, granted, she didn't create the Southern Gothic genre, but she did immensely popularize it. Basically, what it is people looking at old stories of the South from people like Mark Twain, where they make the racism and poverty people go through seem kind of endearing. But the Southern Gothic genre says, fuck no, it's not charming. People are goddamn dying, dude. And instead, give you stories that are a bit more glum. Not necessarily realistic, but the point of Southern Gothic stories is to basically show you that no one actually wants to live in the South. To Kill a Mockingbird was a Southern Gothic, although Harper Lee still managed to make it kind of cute. Anyway, Flannery...
At times,
but it... What was wrong with the rest of it?
I don't know. Go back and listen to the shit you wrote. Like, you presented me with the information. Don't ask me to regurgitate it onto your face.
For more on this, go to episode 5 of Kayla Can't Read before we got kind of a shitty recorder and some equipment. And it was recorded off the iPad.
Oh, yeah, that was before the Lovecraft episode.
Yep. Now, anyway, Flannery presented her story, The Geranium, to her friend Andrew Little back at the Iowa Writers Workshop, who fucking loved it, and went on to get the story published in a literary journal called Accent that very same summer in 1946. And so Andrew convinces her to write some more, and more. And before she knew it, Flannery O'Connor was collecting 6 short stories into her master's thesis, fully changing her career from journalist to literary author. And in 1947, she received her MFA from the University of Iowa at just the age of 22. The next year, in the summer of 48, Flannery O'Connor attended an artist retreat called Yadow in Saratoga Springs, New York, to work on her first novel. And Yadow was like the Iowa Writers Workshop, but now in a fucking mansion instead of a classroom. And just like the workshop, this place also housed a shit ton of award winners. Sylvia Plath, Truman Capote, David Foster Wallace, they all went to Yadow. Anyway, in 1949, Flannery got an offer to move in with a couple of fellow Yadow attendees named Robert and Sally Fitzgerald in Ridgefield, Connecticut. And Flannery leaving the school could not have been better timed. That same year, in 1949, a news story broke about a current Yadow student named Agnes Smedley being a Soviet Union spy. And they weren't wrong.
Oh, found another one.
There were pictures of her just chilling with fucking Mao Zedong. Like she's there, all smiles, just like, yeah! Like it was very cute. The school director was getting interrogated by the FBI. It was a fucking mess. But it was while Flannery O'Connor was shacked up with Robert and Sally Fitzgerald that she was able to focus on her first novel. Released on May 15th, 1952 by Harcourt Brace and Company, Wise Blood was actually a reworking of O'Connor's earlier stories, the 6 that she had collected for her master's thesis in Iowa, plus a few new ones with names and locations changed, so they were no longer separate stories, but chapters that tell one concise story instead. I mentioned somewhere in a previous episode that the purpose of a short story is to have one memorable thing in it so it'll be remembered. So if you're turning your short stories into chapters, you're going to have a pretty wild book. Anyway, this is Wise Blood. In the midst of World War II, Hazel Motes has been injured and honorably discharged. He returns to his family home in Tennessee to find it completely abandoned. This rejection from his family, as well as the things he saw during his stint in the war, have Hazel becoming a staunch atheist. With nowhere left to go, he hops a train to the fictional town of Tockenham, where he buys a suit and hat specifically to look like a preacher. And he knows the look too, because his grandfather was one, and he grew up with all the lessons of Christianity just beaten into him. And his plan? To have people of faith come up to him in confidence, looking for advice, and then he'll preach the values of sin instead. Well, he bums around Tockenham for a while, without any luck, before going to the zoo and bumping into 18-year-old zookeeper Enoch Emery, who, after chatting, thinks Hazel has his whole fucking life together. He says Hazel has something called wise blood, explaining it as an inherent instinct that you know what to do and where to go with no one telling you.
Oh, it's just being overconfident and dumb, but...
Yeah, but if you've got some person real dumb who's just like, oh boy, mister, you sure seem like a well-to-do guy. Well, you didn't need anyone to tell you to grab another drink or hit me. Wow. Just then, a blind preacher named Asa Hawks and his 15-year-old daughter, Sabbath Lily, begin preaching loudly on a street corner right outside the zoo entrance. Hazel and Enoch go check out the gathering crowd, and Asa says to them that he knows why the people draw near. They're not coming to him out of curiosity of a man shouting on the street, no, but because they know they have the inner desire to be saved, and they can feel that he's the man to do it. Well, this pisses Hazel off to no end. He shouts from the back of the crowd that he's going to start his own ministry, anti-God.
But blackjack and hookers.
But nobody really gives a shit except for Enoch, who's like, yes, yes! And Hazel is so serious about creating his own ministry, he even follows the Hawkses back home and moves into the same boarding house as them.
Oh, great.
I mean, I think that this is before... I think that this
stalking laws?
No. Like, what the fuck? I wasn't going to go there. I was going to say, I think that this might have been before fucking like the Satanic Temple and everything, which had nothing to do with Satan. It was just more of like, just get religion out of the classrooms, please, that kind of thing. But like, I would love...
The Satanic Panic thing was a thing.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yes. Yeah. But the Satanic Temple was built sometime in the late 50s, early 60s. Satanic Panic didn't take place until the 1980s. But I mean,
Aleister Crowley's a stupid douche, but
yes, but he wasn't part of the it doesn't matter. Okay. I'm about to go into real magical history for you. Don't want to do it.
Wait, is he dead?
Aleister Crowley? Hell yeah.
Can we do
he's
him?
Dead.
I bet that would be funny as shit.
Oh, if you want that, if anyone wants that, honestly, just go listen to last podcast on the left. They've done an extensive 3 or 4 episode thing on him where he just as part of a ritual, he had a guy butt fuck him while he was chanting. But here's the thing. The dude was so into butt fucking him, but Aleister Crowley changed this man's life. He was scared. He just threw those hips and drained him so fucking dry. The man was like fucking PTSD after that. Look, man, satanic energy is real. You really
threw a curveball in this wholesome episode right there, man.
All I'm saying is, look, man, if somebody...
You just threw us into a dude giving a sermon while getting fucked in the ass and power bottoming his life away. Holy shit.
I just took 20 years from you.
How do you feel?
All I'm saying is that if somebody had a church that was not pro-Satan, but just preaching the existence of God, but it's anti-God, like God is the cruel master kind of thing, that'd be pretty fucking sick. I'd be down. I'd go check it out. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, whatever.
Well, so
we still get a story out of it.
Yeah, pretty much. So Hazel is there at the same boarding house as Asa and Sabbath Lily, and Hazel wants to seduce Sabbath Lily to destroy Asa's faith, but turns out that Sabbath Lily is into Hazel anyway. So although the work is already done for him, he doesn't really feel like he's put in the work. So he starts looking for other forms of embarrassment instead. When asking her how her father went blind, Sabbath Lily shows Hazel a newspaper clipping of how Asa, during an event, had a faith so strong that he poured quicklime into his eyes to stave his desire for material things for the rest of his days.
That's just... What?
What?
Okay, wait, never mind. I was having a hard time understanding how those two connected, but now I do. Proceed, please.
The butt fucking?
No, the lime and the... Go on, please.
But Hazel smells bullshit, so he sneakily creeps to Asa's open door, finding Asa without his glasses, walking around very obviously not blind, just juggling and shit. And when confronted, Asa pretty much tells him that, yeah, sure, he's a con man, but he's still a man of faith, goddammit. But either way...
Yeah, no, that kind of rules it out, actually.
What, being a con man, but also a man of God?
Yeah, that just kind of confirms everybody who's, a little bit critical of that suspicions.
Okay. Listen, if you don't give money to the church for their private jets, then they cannot spread the word of God quicker at other places.
Hold the snakes. Shut up. Wait, no, don't shut up. Speak a weird thing.
Oh, Billy's got it. Billy's got the tongue of grass. No, Billy was kicked in the head by a horse when he was 5. But either way, Asa is still found out, so he does the good Christian thing and skips town without his daughter. With no rival left in town, Hazel Motes begins his street corner franchise. Enoch believes that any good preacher needs a prophet, so he quickly looks for one. He breaks into the local museum and steals the mummy of a dwarf. He keeps the mummy... Shut up. He keeps the mummy... He keeps the mummy hidden under his sink, but later hands the mummy off to Sabbath Lily.
This sounds like some Mad Libs horse shit. Like, what is it?
Well, that's what I was talking about. So basically, it was that whole thing of like, if you want to have your short story known, then basically what you do is
Steal
have something...
a blank, hide it under the blank.
Well, if you have a short story and you want it remembered, then something kind of crazy or kooky has to happen. If you're going to take 6 short stories and throw them all into a book and pretend like they're chapters, you're going to have a whack out, balls crazy fucking book.
Well, okay, she has my attention. Let's go.
So Enoch hands the mummy off to Sabbath Lily so she can present it to Hazel. But when she does, Hazel sees Sabbath Lily with this baby-looking mummy, and he sees this as an image of Madonna and Child. Like she's Mother Mary and the dwarf corpse is Christ. And in a heathen-fueled rage, Hazel snatches the mummy, breaks it up, and throws the fucking remains out the window.
This poor fucking dwarf.
Why was it
mummified?
I don't, because he's just a mummy.
Never mind.
What do you mean? Who cares?
Please excuse me. I was so immersed in this story.
Mummies happen naturally.
I was so immersed in the story, I forgot this was her work of fiction.
Yes.
Let us please proceed.
That'd be awesome as shit if this was her life. Just like, so then I fucking broke up the dwarf mummy and... Now, there's a movie coming to theaters, which we can assume is Tarzan. And as a promotion, the movie theater is going to have a gorilla in the lobby where the kids can come and shake its hand. Enoch catches wind of this, and he is just fucking stoked. Day of, he's standing in line just eager as fuck to shake this gorilla's hand. Probably really scaring the parents around him, too. Well, it gets to
one grown-ass man.
Just one bouncing around, just, oh, boy, it's a gorilla.
I empathize with this. I should.
Yeah, well, it gets to Enoch's turn, and what do you know? It's a guy in a suit. I feel like all the parents probably knew that and thought this guy had some mental disability.
This is bullshit. That's a guy in a goddamn suit. I know. I'm a grown man.
And Enoch doesn't really get it. He's like, hey, aren't you just a guy in a suit? And while shaking his hand, the gorilla pulls Enoch close, and he's like, hey, buddy, go to hell. And it's here that Enoch finds that he too has wise blood. He knows what must be done. So he follows the gorilla into an alley on the way to his car and stabs him to death with the end of a sharpened umbrella.
Well, I was about to tell you that this read like an 80s titty comedy, and then that took a turn.
You don't remember in Revenge of the Nerds where they stab a homeless man to death? So Enoch then puts on the gorilla suit and he has a night on the town. He just fucking goes around scaring folks, and he like goes up to the fucking hills and just watches the moon set in a fucking gorilla costume.
Arms crossed.
And that is the last we hear of Enoch. Now, while Hazel Motes is getting known around town for his weird-ass street corner ramblings, a man calling himself J. Holy starts the Holy Church of Christ Without Christ, where he's got a guy dressed up like Hazel pretending to be drunk and just has him spew random bullshit at people, just obviously mocking him. And you, too, can join the Holy Church of Christ Without Christ for only $1, which quite a few people do just for shits and giggles. And Hazel flips his fucking lid because he's not preaching against God for some sort of profit. He's doing it because hating God is a way of life. So Hazel does what anyone would. He follows the fake drunken Hazel to his car, tails him down a lonely path, then runs him off the road. And when the guy gets out of his car to ask, like, hey, what the fuck? Hazel runs him over multiple times.
Also, I'm alive still. Ah!
Yeah, if somebody runs you off the road, probably best not to leave your vehicle, honestly.
Play dead, grab the firearm. Be cool.
But when Hazel walks over to the body to make sure the guy is well and truly dead, the fake Hazel is surprisingly still alive, though actively dying. In his final moments, much to Hazel's surprise, the fake Hazel confesses to him his sins. The next day, Hazel gets pulled over by a policeman. Nervous that he may be in trouble for the slaying he committed the night before, he's relieved to hear the policeman say he's just citing Hazel for driving without a license. No proof or nothing, just out of the blue. He instructs Hazel to drive to a nearby cliff, which he does. And once he's out of his car, the cop's just like, ain't no point in having a car if you ain't got a license. Yep. And just pushes the fucking car off the cliff and then drives away.
Is this shit not a movie?
It's not. But man, this is why we need police reform.
This shit
just fucking yeets a car off a cliff.
This shit reads more like a fucking movie than a book.
It'd be pretty good, honestly. Well, unsure of what to do, Hazel goes home and blinds himself with quicklime. He becomes one of those flagellants that whip themselves for Christ. Except he wraps himself in barbed wire and puts rocks in his shoes.
I'm going to up the game here.
So every step and movement is pain in the name of anti-life. Stumbling out into the rainstorm. What, you all right there? Honestly, if you want a good metal act, you should have done this.
It's just weird when they get all kinky,
My pants are so
You're like, man,
right now.
You're really giving it to Christ. You're really...
You wanna... just make it a little tighter.
Whoa, brother.
Stumbling out into a rainstorm, Hazel's landlady becomes somehow stricken with him and puts the call out to police to please bring him back. He's found by the police, who beat Hazel for the inconvenience and drive him back to the boarding house. The landlady thanks the cops for bringing him back safe and keeps Hazel Motes in her bed, just baby-talking him. What she doesn't know is that Hazel Motes died from the beating the police gave him. And while she sweetly talks to his corpse, the landlady thinks she sees a twinkle in the black holes that were his eyes.
Oh, you're getting hard, too. Real hard.
Now, granted...
Oh, that's Rick and Mortis.
I could use that for a few hours. Now, granted, I did not read this novel. I didn't feel like I needed to because I've read all of her short stories, and if it's just a rehashing of her short stories, then I feel like I've pretty much read it, right? Yeah. But at the very least, I know it was well written because she is a great writer. Anyway, when it released...
Wait,
what?
You didn't read the thing you just read?
No, I read all of her short stories, and I thought that was all that she ever written. And then when I did research, I was like, oh, she has a couple of books under her belt. I'm not going to read those.
Whatever. Should we do somebody else for the episode today? No breaks on this train.
The second book, which we will get to next episode, actually, it sounds pretty fucking interesting, and I do want to read that one.
All right.
Now, when it was released, Wise Blood unfortunately didn't get a whole hell of a lot of attention. It's not like it wasn't received well by critics. I guess it just wasn't promoted well enough. But since then, the book has become a cult classic. Well, While it might be strange that it took her 3 years to write a book that's essentially just a rehashing of some old stories she already had, perhaps it took her a little while to finish because she was feeling ill. You see, the year before Wise Blood was released, the summer of 51, Flannery O'Connor was diagnosed with lupus, the same exact thing that killed her father. She was told she'd die by the time she was 27, just 5 years later. And lupus is now treatable if you catch it early enough, but the FDA wouldn't approve the use of hydroxychloroquine as a treatment for lupus until 1955, a mere 3 years after she was diagnosed. It's the one that Trump wanted everyone to take originally.
Is that the bit with the UV lights in your asshole? Or
yeah, it was the same meeting. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Sorry. No, I just took the vaccine and didn't pay attention to that. But...
Yeah, and it was weird that what was cheaper and more effective was just taking the vaccine. But what would I know? I'm no scientist. I still have people look at my asshole every once in a while for funsies.
Hey,
but
didn't you have to go do that today?
What, get my asshole checked?
You don't want to tell us about your asshole day today?
What happened to my asshole?
Remember, we can edit anything we want out, brother. Remember, I called you, and you were like, I'm naked, and then I was like,
oh,
touching
that's
your
right.
penis, and you were like, no, I'm touching my asshole, and I was like, okay, thought I was going to be bummed, but now I'm more excited. Go on.
You called me when I got out of the shower. What was I supposed to say? I'm in the weird situation of being naked. Of course I'm going to tell you. Why would I not tell you that I'm touching myself as I'm talking to you?
Why are you avoiding this? I thought you recently got your butthole checked at the doctor.
No, that was a little while back. Turned out it was just Indian food. But anyways, that is true. He says sometimes that happens. You know, what are you going to do?
Did you go to a specialist?
He said he was a doctor.
Okay, yeah, don't go to the urgent care for butthole stuff because they're just going to throw you out immediately. And then if you're persistent, then they'll set you up with a specialist. But
it was my dentist. So anyway, Flannery O'Connor used to visit the Andalusia estate every summer since she was a child. But with her growing weakness, she'd need to have someone on hand to help take care of her. Flannery O'Connor moved back to Milledgeville with her mother, Regina, eventually finishing her work on Wise Blood while she was there. And although she hoped the move would only be temporary, Flannery O'Connor would spend her remaining days on Andalusia Farm. And her sickness was something she always lamented. To her, she was stuck on this desolate little farm in Georgia, while to her, the place to be was back home in Connecticut with the literary circles. Her biggest struggle was her boredom. Quote, "This season, we have had 3 pea chickens hatch, and I have killed 1 rattlesnake. Otherwise, nothing goes on around here." Speaking of which, among the things...
Did you try looking for more rattlesnakes? That sounds fun. That sounds riveting as
just
fuck.
A woman with a lupus trying to battle snakes.
Woman with lupus and a 12 gauge, just like shaking.
And speaking of which, among the things to keep her busy on Andalusia was famously her peafowl. Flannery O'Connor, she had about 100 peacocks and pea chickens roaming her property.
Oh, okay, cool.
Why
would you assume I just knew what the fuck peafowl was?
That's what I was getting into. Yeah, I know. Everyone goes, it's a peacock. No, it's just the big pretty ones are the boys, and then the other ones are just
the little
chickens.
lame ones are...
Yeah, the lame little brown ones. Yeah. Oh, okay. I wrote it down in here. I was going to tell you about it, but I was like, here. So anyway, so I'm sure that the whole scene though, having a fucking 100 peafowl.
Sorry for doubting you. You got anything?
No.
Don't just do a weird tongue thing. No one can see that. It's not a rebuttal.
So I'm sure that the 100 peacocks and peafowl and everything, like I'm sure the place looked amazing. But for those that don't know, peacocks are fuckers. They may look like a mild-mannered drag show, but the real drag queens themselves, like these, will fucking throw down at a moment's notice. This, incidentally, was how a lot of Flannery's friends thought of her. Beautiful, but with a mean bite. That's actually why they had to remove the peacocks that used to roam free at the Oregon Zoo. They fucking beat up an 8-year-old.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
You don't even want to fucking know about the Atlanta Zoo. Holy shit.
Rattlesnakes.
Y'all got peacocks, we got rattlesnakes. Grab them with your hands. Speak in tongues. You'll be fine. Like,
yeah, man. Do you remember those things that used to be up there? Those peacocks would just hang around. You remember that?
No, I wasn't here when that was a thing.
No, it was fairly recent.
No, and when I was...
Have you ever been to the zoo?
Yes, I've been to the zoo.
We should go to the zoo together, man.
I'm up.
We got to set up some dates.
Dude, I do work in Forest Park all the fucking time.
That's right.
Yes, I've been to the fucking zoo. Like,
yeah.
But no, fucking Atlanta, they have this one fucking... They're all over the place. They're fucking terrible. Terrible screeching creatures. And they did have one, for some fucking reason, out of chance, that was just a gigantic albino male.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be really fucking cool. I don't know how long that lasted. Was not following up on that. But he would post up in the gorilla exhibit, though, so I don't think...
The gorillas were afraid of him, too.
I mean, it's kind of weird. Like, I mean, anything intelligent is going to be like, I don't know about that. Like, there's all this other weird glass I can't pass through. Maybe don't fuck with that. You know, like, so I get it.
He just goes through fucking walls.
But eventually, I'm assuming he dropped into an exhibit that got him fucked up. Because I know they didn't, like, order him and then just let him roam free. But he would always have a crowd of, like, 15 females, like, absolutely just bobbing their head dumbass chickenily around him. Like,
yeah, well, you know, I was when I was reading up on the on this whole thing about the peacocks beating up an 8-year-old, there were a lot of people that were just like, that, you know, what were the parents doing, and was it the kid's fault and everything like that? It's like, no, dude, they're roaming free. Of course a child is going to go up to them, and they're assholes. Like, I don't blame the parents or the kid at all.
Wait, how many peacocks ganged up on him?
Oh, I don't know, actually, but I mean, fucking just 1 to 3 would have done it.
I know, because I got jumped by like one of them big white geese.
Yeah,
when I was like
Swan?
11, and that shit sucked. No, the swans were cool actually, but I got jumped by some of the bigger ones outside a library one time, and that shit sucked. It was 2 of them.
And they didn't go back to the librry ever again, and now you don't know how to read.
Holy shit.
To this day.
Okay, let's not read into that. No. I was just like walking, and it was like I would have to stay like after school. My mom would come pick me up, and she worked like swing doing some administrative shit at a community college, and there was a library over there, so that's where
you misread that. She's a swinger. She told you she was a swinger.
Shut up. And so what would happen was I would be like, okay, I'm gonna go to the library to do my fucking homework, and there were these 2 geese that would like post up there, and and I got this false sense of security because initially I like saw them over there, and I was like, okay, well, I guess everybody's walking past them, everything's cool, so I walked past them for weeks, and then one day I walked past them, you know, backpack. I don't know if I was carrying a book that offended them or fucking something. But like, and then one of them just like fucking put their head down and like bolted over the fucking causeway at me and just fucked my shit up. And the other one goddamn joined in, and like a fucking like a random passer, but some fucking 20-year-old kid jumped in and like scared him off. But it was scary as hell.
Flannery O'Connor's daily routine on Andalusia was usually to get up, do some writing, go to morning mass, then spend the rest of the day reading. It's no surprise then that her next book, a collection of short stories released by Harcourt, Brace and Company in 1955 called A Good Man is Hard to Find in Other Stories, has a little bit of a violent streak to it. Take, for instance, a story called The Displaced Person. You see, a displaced person was a refugee from World War II that, since their home and everything they owned was bombed to shit, basically had the opportunity to start over anywhere because, hell, they didn't have a choice. So the U.S. government would take these refugees, in this story's case a Polish family, and have them work the American dream in factories or farms or wherever, just starting from scratch. Well, basically, this Polish guy comes onto the farm of one Mrs. McIntyre through her local priest, who thinks it'll be good to have an extra hand on the farm. Plus, extra Jesus points as she's a good Christian. And this Polish guy, he doesn't speak English. He just wakes up, does his fucking work, goes to bed. But the other farm hands start talking, and they get the idea in Mrs. McIntyre's head that maybe this guy just isn't who he says he is. And maybe he's a real son of a bitch. And maybe
he's a fucking Nazi.
He's malicious.
Oh, yeah.
And basically, throughout the story, they just spin this fucking tale and snowball everything until it comes to a head, where the Polish guy is working on a tractor just doing his fucking job, and Mrs. McIntyre watches as another farmhand runs over his lower half and kills him, making it look like an accident.
Oops.
And here's the thing. Flannery O'Connor was a devout Catholic her whole entire life. After this book came out, she wrote more than 100 reviews for Christian philosophy books for a couple of Catholic newspapers called The Bulletin and The Southern Cross. Problematic name as that last one may be. It's not. It didn't mean that.
Yeah. No.
Thing
We
is,
got it. The listeners got it.
Yeah.
It's cool.
she wasn't. The thing is, though, she wasn't just handing out gold stars because they were Catholic books for a Catholic audience, kind of like what Ralph Ellison did for the communist books coming out on a communist paper. You know, her reviews were actually very astute. You could tell she knew her shit from a philosophical standpoint, not just Catholicism. You couldn't just bullshit your way through it. She needed you to question things. And this is just my own theory here, but I think after getting diagnosed with a killer disease, she started questioning the idea of God himself a little bit. But of course, growing up with the idea that God is real, you can't just say you're starting to question him because, shit, what if you're wrong? You raise a few questions and now you get a lifetime supply of hell. So it could be that instead of questioning God, she started questioning these religious authors instead. Anyway, it just kind of feels like she's at odds with her faith with some of these stories, that's all. And I think this becomes equally apparent in another story from the collection called Good Country People. This is about a woman named Mrs. Hopewell and her daughter Joy. When Joy was a child, she lost her leg in an accident, causing her to wear a wooden prosthetic for the rest of her life. And with her mother's ill will towards her crippled child, Joy does what she can to despise her mother. Things like going to college, getting a PhD in philosophy of all things.
Take that, Mom.
Becoming an atheist, and legally changing her name to what she perceives as the ugliest name she could ever think of. Caleb. No. Holga. Together, Mrs. Hopewell and Holga live in silence on their quiet little farm. One day, a salesman named Manly Pointer comes to the door and introduces himself. I got a new name for your penis.
God damn it. Maybe edit that out.
No,
That's too stupid and too dadly.
No, man, we both had that same thought. I just in my periphery, I just saw a little curvature of your cheek, just like, it was like, yeah,
Yes.
it's my Manly Pointer.
Yes.
Now, at first, Mrs. Hopewell doesn't care for the fella, him being a solicitor and all. But he says something along the lines of, "Oh, I know how it is. You can't trust a lonely Christian country bumpkin like me." In a moment of weakness, Mrs. Hopewell invites him inside, because she, too, is just good country people. Now, you see, Manly Pointer is a Bible salesman.
They fall for little phrases like that all the time.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, that's the mark of a good solicitor.
That's their fucking catnip. If you make it fucking, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Do you know any other phrases? Little phrases like that? They just seem to kind of...
Oh, yeah. You're going to attach it on. I think it worked for my mom when if
it rhymes and it's easy to remember, then it's true, brother, and I'm going to live my life by it.
It was an encyclotanic... Icelandic?
Encyclotanic.
All hails.
Oh, the Encyclotanic Bible.
He's doing those Encyclopedia Britannica things, and it's a whole 100 volume set type thing. And she was like, all right, I think you ought to, she called me down from playing my fucking video games and was like, hey, come choose out one of these, one volume. And I got volume 2. And she's like, you need one of these to help you study or whatever. And the dude's just sitting there and I was like, bro, how did you get in? What did you tell her? I bet your son's in there playing video games right now since he's 9. Yeah, of course I am, Mom. Fucking kidding me? But yeah, it'll work for some people for sure.
Why, did you just tell me about when your mom fucked an encyclopedia salesman?
As a matter of fact, I didn't come down because she asked me at all. I was just going to the kitchen and she was like, oh, this is
Oh, weird. Do you not have any memory of that? Okay, well then we should probably move on.
How dare you?
Yeah, I dared. Go
there
on.
It is. And Pointer, he can't help but notice there isn't a Bible somewhere in the parlor. According to Manly, quote, for a Christian, The word of God ought to be in every room in the house besides in his heart. I do like the way Flannery O'Connor will put some vernacular into her words. So he doesn't say Christian, it's Christian with CHRUST.
I wasn't going to say anything and like derail it.
He's a Christian. And I do like that because it's not over the fucking top like some authors will do.
I don't know, though, at the same time, I've never heard anybody say Christian before. They're always like, Christian.
Christian.
Yeah, that's how they do it.
Yeah. But while Manly doesn't get the sale, what he does get is the one wooden-legged Holga's attention. She elects to walk him out. She elects to walk him out to the front gate. When they're alone, Manly asks Holga how old she is. 17. She's 32. She's planning on fucking this guy so hard he loses faith. That's her actual plan.
Yeah, 32-year-old, yeah, that'll do it.
Well, Manly invites Holga out on a picnic date on her property the next day, which she agrees to. And they have a lovely time. But he asks her to show him around the barn out of...
I'm 17. Oh, well, I've never seen a woman before.
I've never seen a woman with a mustache that large on 17-year-old. Wow. He asks her to show her the barn out of, intrigue. He asks her about the loft at the top of a long wooden ladder, and Holga thinks maybe he doesn't think she can climb it on account of her wooden leg. So she climbs up...
I keep forgetting this MILF has a wooden leg.
She climbs up it to prove she ain't no cripple. And once they're up in the loft, he asks her about her prosthetic. And she shows
madam,
him...
you are indeed, by definition, a cripple. I'm just, I wasn't saying you couldn't do it. Please, I'll just carry... God damn, you don't have...
Well, no. This is part of the guy's fucking plan. He's now asking about her prosthetic, and she shows it to him, like how to take it off and on, and has dreams of him coming home from work each day and removing the leg for her after a long day on the farm. Well, Manly just kind of goes, huh, neat, and tosses the leg out of Holga's reach. Then
give me your fucking money.
Then he removes her glasses and starts kissing on her, which she doesn't resist. This is her first kiss, after all. Then from his suitcase of Bibles, Manly picks out one in particular. It's been hollowed out, and within it is a flask, some rubbers, and some nudie pictures. He offers Holga a drink, but she refuses. And
this is a very horny writer.
Oh, yeah. And wanting the encounter to be more romantic, Holga tries to make philosophical small talk.
Fine, I will open my Bible that has the candles. Jesus Christ, whatever gets me there. Like,
it's got a separate one. Yeah, this one's got the fold-out table and chairs. This one's got the candles and the doilies. So she tries to make philosophical small talk with Manly, like just cut the awkwardness. But Manly, however, thinks she's trying to call him stupid. So he gets upset and goes back down the ladder with his briefcase and Holga's wooden leg like, fuck you. My name isn't even Manly. I'm an atheist just making a quick buck from dipshit Christians like you. And you want to know what else? I travel the country collecting limbs from disabled people. Ha!
I like to sexually assault people and then steal their prosthetic limbs.
And that's just how this story ends, with Holga blind, disappointed, and legless in a barn loft. Like, everyone in this story is a piece of shit. Between Mrs. Hopewell, who has a disdain for her daughter because she's crippled and therefore ugly to her, to Holga, who's just kind of a dick to her mom, and of course Manly goes without saying. And he uses the Bible to mask his true intentions, which might be a metaphor for God, now that I think about it.
A metaphor for God, no, but a metaphor for whatever church she was interacting with around her, or whatever,
Right.
Or the group that were into that kind of weird shit. I mean,
Yeah. And that's the thing, is for sure Flannery O'Connor was very much like, she like I said, she's a devout Catholic, but she was not about people not questioning things at all.
I mean, if she's a devout Catholic, it's very different than, being a Southern evangelicalist. Like, So if she's dogging on that shit, that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. And our main focus for next episode, and what most people would agree is the pinnacle of Flannery O'Connor's entire career, is the title story of her 1955 collection, A Good Man Is Hard to Find. And while she did initially publish this story in a multi-author collection from Avon Publications called Modern Writing 1 4 years earlier, no one ever heard about it. But what I would like to point out is that this book was published in 1951, the same year she was diagnosed with lupus. If she wrote this book after her diagnosis, it would explain why this story is so unforgivably dark. And that's where we'll pick up back on the next episode.
Oh my God, you went all the way through and you stuttered at the end, you bitch! You tripped at the finish line! Oh my God!
So we're gonna anyway. So next week we'll talk about A Good Man Is Hard to Find and go through the rest of her life, which was unfortunately cut very short by her lupus, but most people know that. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
We'll tack on to the pretty recently debated question of, is Flannery O'Connor racist? We'll touch on that a little bit as well.
I mean, there's no fucking way she wasn't a little bit. I mean, let's just be realistic about who she was in the time period.
I mean, honestly, I don't know about Harper Lee, honestly. I mean, that's the thing is, like, Harper Lee never had any issues with anyone of color that has ever been recorded, written down, and her story would definitely tell you that she didn't. But honestly, I don't know, because she was very much an introvert, and Harper Lee stuck just by herself for the rest of her life. That was it. She didn't want to talk to anybody.
I mean, yeah, but if we're going over anybody from these time periods, I mean, yeah, it's fucking shitty, but at the same time, the reality is...
Yeah. Well, I hope you all had fun.
This is a weird episode. I really feel like we, like, zigzagged up and down on all this shit. Like, we started out very wholesome, and this ending, I feel...
I just want some Totinos. That's all I want.
Totinos?
Just cut my sadness in half.